So just a little bit about me. I work at UCF, the Business Intelligence and Analytics Specialist. For all of you who are at UCF, go Knights. I have a bachelor's degree in management and a master's in communication. I have over 10 years experience, and I can't believe it's been so fast. And I began my career in IT working for a startup small business in 2010. And my focus is, I haven't had a chance to put this on, it's Azure in the cloud, and it's also T-SQL, data warehousing, AI, Microsoft Power BI, and business intelligence strategy. And I am also certified as a data analyst associate. That's a Power BI associate. I know they're changing the name, I forgot when. Also, as I just said, AI fundamentals, and also recently I just have got my certification in Azure data fundamentals. I am the leader of the Data and AI Central Florida user group. That's for Azure, and also for the Orlando Power BI user group. We have some great meetups coming up if you would like to attend. You can connect with me on social media. I am on Twitter at IT Data Diva, and on LinkedIn as IT Data Diva too. And I'm actually thinking about possibly changing that name just to Priscilla Camp. I'm not sure yet, but it is something that's crossing my mind. All right, so let's just talk about the agenda. All right, the plan is to talk about the list of the elements of artificial intelligence, and then we'll define some AI insights. We'll discuss the 3 AI insights in Power Query. We'll define the functions. We'll do a demo of sentiment analysis, and then a review, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. Okay, let me just this. All right, so what are the artificial intelligence elements? Well, first we have machine learning. This uses algorithms to teach a computer model to make better decisions from data. The model will improve with experience and it learns from its mistakes. There are 3 types of machine learning: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. The next one is anomaly detection. I really like that one. It talks about identifying atypical patterns in data. Most of the time, what comes to people's minds is credit card fraud. You usually will get a text message from your bank saying, "Hey, we've noticed that we have a weird charge, perhaps from a gas station, and for me, if I'm in Florida, it'd be Maryland or whatnot." The next one is natural language processing, which is my favorite, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. It basically says the computer has the ability to understand written and spoken language. The next one is computer vision, and this is the computer has the ability to see and understand pictures and videos, which it processes. And then last but not least, conversational AI. A software agent can engage in a conversation. You could think of a bot, and what I'm hearing is it's becoming very heavily used. I bolded the 3 that are covered in Power BI, which is machine learning, natural language processing, and computer vision. So now that I talked about the artificial intelligence elements, let's just talk about some machine learning features. They have automated machine learning. This feature kind of enables non-experts to quickly create an effective machine learning model from data. And then we have the Azure Machine Learning Designer. This is a graphical interface for enabling no-code development of machine learning solutions. And then you have data and compute management, which is cloud-based data storage and resources that data scientists can use to run a data experiment code at scale. And then we have pipelines, which is for data scientists, engineers, and you can define pipelines to orchestrate model training, deployment, and management tasks. So now that we discussed some of the machine learning features, let's move on to some computer vision services. And I know this slide is kind of, plain, I'm sorry, but I couldn't find at the time any good, images to use. So I just put it right on here. Computer vision services, you have computer vision. This is the service that analyzes images and videos. It extracts extracts descriptions, tags, objects, and text. Basically, it can see the world and make sense of it. The next one is custom vision, which I found very interesting when I was learning about it. You use this service to train custom image classifications and object detection models using your own images. So if you're running a supermarket, you can put an apple in there, and then it lets you kind of put a box around it and say apple to train it. And the next one is face. And face service enables you to build face detection and facial recognition solutions. And this one, you have to be really careful with how you're using it. And the next one is form recognizer. You can actually use this service to extract information from scanned forms and invoices. Another really cool one. And if I can remember right, I used this for receipts. You can copy a receipt and put it on there. All right, so that was computer vision services. Let's move on to natural language processing, my favorite one. It's also known as NLP, that's the acronym for it. And basically it's creating a software that understands written and spoken language. For instance, speech, we use this to recognize and synthesize speech and to translate spoken languages. And then we have it looks like LUIS, it's an acronym, and it's Language Understanding Intelligence Service. And you use this service to train a language model that can understand spoken or text-based commands. The next one is a translator text. It's just what you think it is. It's used a service to translate text between more than 60 languages. And then you also have text analytics, and this is kind of where sentiment analysis, key phrase extraction, and language detection fall into. So let's see. So text analytics, let's see if I have anything in here. You can use key phrases and detect entities, which are like dates and people, and evaluate your sentiment. So it's like, it'll give you a rating from 0 to 1. It's positive or it's kind of a negative. And we'll see more on that soon. So now that I talked about natural language processing, let's talk about something that's really important. And you may be thinking, why do I need to know about this? I'm here just to hear about AI and Power BI. But when I was studying for the Microsoft certification, they put these in there. And as you learn about them, you can see why it's so important. So let's talk about the 6 principles for responsible AI. First, we have privacy and security. It's increasing reliability on data needs to requirements to keep data secure. You make sure your data is not leaked, right? You want to keep it private. Accountability. Designers and developers should work with a framework of governance and principles, which is the key there, the governance and principles, to ensure that solutions meet ethical and legal standards that are clearly defined. Next, very important one is reliability and safety. You want to be consistent with your ideas and values and principles. They are not creating harm. You should reduce or have no risk to human life. And then for this, you can think of self-driving cars. You don't want to have an accident with them. You want to make sure it's 100% safe for everyone. Another important one is transparency, right? AI systems should be understandable. Users should be made fully aware of the purpose of the system, how it works, and what limitations may be expected. People should be open to how and why, and also the limitations of the system. Inclusiveness, right? You want AI systems should, right, empower, which is an important keyword, and you want them also to engage people. And last, fairness. It should reduce unfairness. AI system can reinforce stereotypes, technical components, and social contexts. So greater diversity of people deploying AI systems is recommended and should be fair for everyone. Now that we talked about the 6 principles for responsible AI, I'm going to talk to you about some AI insights. And I'll revisit the 6 principles, by the way, for responsible AI with you in a little bit. I'm just going to kind of cover some ground things so that you're familiar with the AI kind of like landscape. So AI insights. So now we're kind of moving further into Power BI. It was released in June 2020 before the preview features. It was used to gain access to a collection of pre-trained machine learning models. It also has text analytics, cognitive services. So now that I kind of talked to you about that, that's sentiment analysis and keyword, which we'll be discussing. Now, I was looking earlier in Azure, the cognitive services, and I believe they actually changed where natural language processing is. I believe it's actually in language now. So it has been updated, and I wasn't familiar with this until like an hour or two before, but I do want to point that out. There's been some changes. Next is the vision cognitive service. And last is Azure machine learning, which is invoking Azure machine learning functions and models. All right, so we discussed some of these AI insights. Now let's talk about how you can access these features. Well, first off, you must have premium. All nodes and A3, M3 and above are premium per user, which I know now it's been out for a little bit. But if you could use premium per user, I believe they give you a trial. And then after that, if you already have a pro subscription, if you get a premium per user, I think it's an extra $10. So it's not very expensive. So you can use it either way like that. Or another way you can use it is if you have Pro, you can use it in Azure. So if you have a subscription to Azure, I know they offer a lot of free ones. You can use it with cognitive services, and it will give you an endpoint and a key which you use to put into Power BI. And I will show you this, and this is what we're going to use. And also, you can also use machine learning models, and that's available to all users. However, in Azure, I believe you have to have be able to get access to that from Power BI. So now that we kind of discussed how to get access to these features, excuse me, let's now talk about plans that cover AI. So that's kind of what I already said, but what I did was I put it into a table so you can get an idea that way in case you're more of a visual person. So if you see over to your left, it's the plan, and I left a tip on the bottom, and I can see how I put it out is premium, premium per user, and pro. So now that I discussed that, let's move on to the AI Insights button. So if you're not familiar about this, if you go to Power Query, or maybe you are and you're just like, what is this? You can find it over here, and you can see text, vision, and Azure machine learning. But you can also, so this is also the add column, and then below is the home, and you can also find it over here. So there's two ways to get to it. So let's look a little bit at text analytic functions. You have the language detection, and this will return the name and the ISO identifier, for example, if it's Spanish or if it's English. And then you have the key phrase extraction, and this kind of evaluates unstructured text and returns a list of key phrases. And then you also have sentiment scoring, which we were just talking about. It returns positive or negative sentiment in social media, customer reviews, and forums. So it scores between 0 and 1. Now let's move on to the computer vision function. So you can tag images with this. It outputs more than, I believe, 2,000 recognizable objects. So you could think of image classification. Examples are humans, scenery, and actions. And I have not played with computer vision in Power BI, but I believe there's some great documentation online for that specifically. So now that we discussed, let's see, computer vision, let's move over to Azure machine learning model. For this, you must have read access to the Azure subscription, and I gave you a link where you can find out about role assignments in Azure, so you can see that in Power BI. So now we talked about Azure machine learning, let's move over again to sentiment analysis. So as I said before, NLP is an area of AI which understands written and spoken language. It returns a score. So to give you some specific examples, if you think of Facebook or Instagram, people who leave comments on there or social media remarks, customer reviews, right? If you go to Chipotle, you have some food. If it was good, you leave a review. If it was bad, you leave a review. Although most people, if it's bad, you leave a review. And then you also have discussion forums where you can see what people have to say there. So there's some examples of that. Now I wanted to give you an AI demo before we get into the Power BI. So let me see if I click this link. I may have to, put my screen over here. So can you see that web page?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is a little fun place where you can actually play with this and kind of get an idea about what it's like. So you can enter your message. So you can say McDonald's has great food. And you can say something like, the fries are hot and delicious. So then you select analyze it. And you can say the sentiment is positive, right? Yay. So then you can say try entity extraction. So it's going to look at McDonald's and it's going to underline that. And then you're going to click it again. Let's see what again. So it's going to bring you some big Bing search results. So you can actually play with this and you can get a lot of different, I think they added something, or maybe this has been here for a while, I can't remember. But you can play with this and actually have a lot of fun with it just to kind of get a taste of what it's like. So let's move back into the presentation. Get my screen back up. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint slide again?
It's back.
Perfect, thank you. So let's start talking about the Azure portal, because if you have the Pro plan, you cannot be able to access it directly from Power BI as if you had premium. So you want to make sure you have an account. And what I did was I provided a link for you so that you can go right there and create a free account. And once you get your account, you're going to want to create a resource or look for cognitive services once you get in there. Now, I had wanted to share with you how I do this in Azure. However, I have a lot of, private information in there, and I was going to create a free account, but then I noticed I had to put my credit card in the free account, and I just did not feel safe with that. I'm going to try to make a video for it, but I did include some screenshots just so that you can, see what I'm doing. And if you have any questions, I can always, be free to help you. So let's move over. So if you look at my slide, you can see and I'm over here creating text analytics right here from cognitive services, and then you hit create. So then you're going to want to add the following information, so such as your subscription, your resource group, your resource, and your region and your name. I'm not too sure about this, but I think if you have a certain region, I think you have to make sure it's in the United States or wherever you're located, because if you change it, I think it will charge you. So I'm not too positive, but I just want you to be aware of that. So once you set this up and you create your resource, right, you're going to need two important things. You're going to need your endpoint, and this is the HTTP address at which your service is hosted. And then you also need a key. This is a secret value used by client applications to authenticate themselves. If you accidentally share your key with someone, you can always regenerate it. But just remember, you want to keep it a secret. Someone finds that, they can, go on there and run stuff. So now that you have your resource and you have your endpoint and you set this up in Azure, you also, may be thinking, well, I want to use some data and I want to play with something. So one site that I found really impressive was Kaggle back in the day. And you can use this website to find and publish data sites. I had a lot of fun in there. I love it. I definitely recommend using it. And another place I found that wasn't too bad was UCI. And this is a machine learning repository that data scientists or analysts can use for analysis of machine learning or algorithms. It has about 588 data sets available for use, maybe even more. And I also provided the link if you wanted to take a screenshot of that. Okay. Let's move on now. So I'm going to give you a demo, but as I said, I wasn't able to actually, show you the Azure part, so I can show you the Power BI part. And also, I want to point out before we get there, let me just get to the page and see if I left it opened. Give me 1 second. Here we go. So I'm going to move over here and I'm just going to start talking here. Okay, so where I got this idea from was this, if you can see my webpage here, it's called a tutorial, extract key phrases from text stored in Power BI. And we're going to talk about sentiment analysis and key phrases. So what this does is it goes step by step with how to do this. So I highly recommend that you check this page out. And this shows you how to first load your data and then how to prepare the data. So you're going to want to clean it. And then it shows you how to understand the API. And this is what, does the calling to Azure. And you're going to need a unique identifier as an ID. You're going to need your text and you're going to need your language. Once you do that, you're going to want to create a custom function, which is an M. And don't worry if you're freaking out and you're like, I don't know anything about M. They actually give you the code to use below here. So you're just going to simply hit copy. And remember before, as I mentioned, you need your API key and your endpoint. You're going to put it there, and then you're going to have your JSON text so it can be able to parse it. So you're going to use the custom function. Like I said, you're going to invoke it. And like I said, this is all step by step. So you can easily follow it. And then one thing I do want to point out, which is a bit of a pain, is the authentication and privacy. You're going to want to put anonymous on there, and you're going to want to make sure your data source is. And if not, you're going to want to go to your data source settings and make sure that's on that, because otherwise it'll kind of not accept it and say there's an error. So you can create a word cloud, which we're going to be talking about, and I'll show you how I created it. You can see it here, which I love key phrases. I thought I actually loved natural language processing better, but I think I love key phrases better. It's more of my thing. So it talks about using other features as well. So this one is sentiment analysis, which I'm going to talk about, and then they also have language code and the text which it's written in. So it's a lot of different options. So now that I kind of showed you that, you kind of know where to go to find the very detailed information on the steps you need. So let's go back. Okay, and now I'm going to open Power BI. So let me move my screen over here. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so let's go to transform data. Just gonna open over here. You may see an error because I do not have the source for the sheet where I created this. I created this on a different PC. That's fine. The only thing I just want to point out is the sheet, which I'm going to show you actually on kind of the Power BI side, not the Power Query side. I'll show you what the data is, but I just want to point out that I created my function and I invoked it and I was able to get it to run. So let me just close this. Okay, and you can see, let me go to the actual data. And you can see here, let's see which one I want to share with you. Here we go. So you can see here what I did was I took ratings from Universal Studios on Kaggle. And, because I live in Orlando, I got to do that. And at one time I did have passes. I don't now because it's been a year, so now I have passes to SeaWorld, by the way. But you can see here that you have the review of the text, what people said. I created my index, which is my ID. I have the title of the person's comment, and I have a date of when the comment was there, and then I just have some rating, and I have the reviewer. If you look here, this is the sentiment analysis. So when this was run, sent to Azure and then sent back, you can see I was given some ratings of positive and then neutral and then negative. And you can see over here is 0.95 for negative, 0.5 for neutral, and then 0 for positive. And you can see this goes along the whole way. And then I also had key phrases. And as you can see here, what it does is it looks at the text and then it takes what it feels is the most important phrases of that message. So if you look over here, the first tab is sentiment analysis that I ran. And what I did was I just created a bar chart. I was just playing with it and I put some text, the text below here, and I put the ratings here. And you can see here that we had, let's see, I made a bar chart and the color. So neutral is like a light blue, and the positive is blue, and negative is gray. And if you kind of hover over here, it will filter out and show you, people's comments. So you can see, here's one. This was more on the negative side. You can see it's a 0.89, and the person leaves good, but needs improvement. We flew in from California after we were vaccinated. Luckily, the Mardi Gras festival was going on because the rest of the food is mediocre. The pizza line is ridiculous. Only one employee in the booth is taking orders and serving. I waited over 45 minutes for pre-made and pre-sliced pizza. The worst experience was on Hogwarts Express, but the employee, Benny, we had express tickets and we're in the next line when Benny gave us a dirty look for going up to the front gate when the blue lines was apparently 6 feet back. Then part of a large party of 17 came up the elevators. He pulled them to the side, allowed more party members to go up and down the elevator and load them on the next train, effectively allowing them to skip to the front of the line. When questioned, he had no valid reason. They were not valid VIP. So you can see here, so I don't have to read the whole thing, that the person wasn't happy, and it was given an 8.9. And if you look over here, here's one that's rated more positive, and it's neutral, 0.4, and then a negative 0.39. So let's click over to see some of the, do I want to go to neutral or positive? Okay. Right here. See, sorry about that. I'm just trying to click this. All right. For something that's not too long here. All right, so here's one, 0.79 positive. So Universal Studios review update. The last time I was here and reviewed the park, it was back in 2008. I feel like it was a time for another visit to and another review. Keep in mind, it may be a little different, but we had an absolute blast here. So you can see so far, people are happy. The kids are 11 and 8, so they were old enough to ride all the rides, plus they've seen most of the movies. Everything worked out great. Universal did a great job with mask enforcement, handing out hand sanitizer and trying to mark lines to keep people socially distant. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can tell that people were pretty happy. So that's sentiment analysis. And you can see it's pretty much accurate. I do have to say that sometimes, though, it's not 100% accurate. When I was running analysis at CF, where I work, we had customers' comments on the service that we provide for IT. So I work in the IT department, and people would leave comments. However, sometimes it would pick up a word and it would see it as negative when it wasn't. I can't think of a specific example. I used to have a good one. It's not coming to my mind, but someone said something like, usually this isn't great, but so-and-so did a good job. And then, the sentiment analysis would pick it up and think that they're saying, it was bad, and it couldn't pick up the context. So you have to be really careful about that. And that kind of goes back to AI responsibilities too, right? If you're holding someone responsible for it, but the AI is not reading it right, you don't want to do that, because that will falsely blame someone for a machine that's not 100% perfect. So the next thing is key phrases positive. So I had a lot of fun with this part. I really enjoy this one. I think the word cloud looks awesome. And, usually what you want to do is you want to go here to get more visuals, and then you put the word cloud and it will come right up for you. So what I really like about this is you can see here, Universal has 8. So, and you can see here, Potter has 7. So you can see a lot of people come in for Harry Potter. The park was 8, you can see fun. So you can see that there was a lot of positive experiences there. So if we click Potter, you can see here that it was consistently magical. I've been to Universal multiple times and always have been amazed at what they can do to make you feel like you're in a world impressive and fun for everyone. If you want to take your kids to the wand experience, go early or late so you don't run into crowds and have to wait a while. So then you can say, then they said, fantastic. You cannot fault Universal for loving every minute of here. I preferred Olga Disney Park, so much more modern and adventurous. Keep your child's entertained. Such a good getaway. And you can see Harry Potter is really what attracts most of the people. Now, if I click park, most people say family fun Universal Adventure Park. Let's see, and then this is Harry, and then let's see rides. Usually people aren't always happy with the way for it aligns, but we'll see that soon. You can see it's an excellent vacation for all ages and rides and restaurants, lots of photo opportunities. Excuse me, and then there's great parks and fair value. So now let's hop on over to the key phrases negative. And one thing that really, I mentioned this, in my last presentation, but you can see there's about like 19 mentions of rides. So if we click this, you can see, in my opinion, when a person tries to test seat for rides and gets the green light, they should not have to go through a long line in the actual seat, and giving out express passes to the group does not rectify the situation. This is not a vacation, worst experience I've ever had. The rides are outdated. The whole place smells like vomit. Wherever you go to, especially Bubba Camp, the manager and staff are super rude, disrespectful, uncaring, awful, rude workers. Multiple rides broke down, very dirty. Usually you would see like wait. It takes, the rides take a long time. Usually if you go to Universal, or especially if you live in Orlando, you have annual passes, you kind of learn how to navigate around that. It's like you go to the park early in the morning or you go late in the evening, you kind of miss all those lines. So that's a lot of the complaint there. You can see long comes up as a keyword phrase here. And then for some reason, when people get mad at Universal, they mention Disney a lot. As you can see, 11 times they mentioned Disney. So you can see I expected more. I just expected more, a lot of waiting. They need to take lessons from Disney, as I seem to have the crowd control down. Overpriced. Some people felt it was overpriced. They think it's a reality TV theme park style. Complete, absolutely waste of money. Website down, so go to Disney instead. So you see a lot of people saying go to Disney or SeaWorld. So for some reason, like I said before, when they're mad, they mention Disney. So I guess that's what happens when there's a bunch of parks out there, a few parks out there that compete against each other. So that's the overview of sentiment analysis, key phrases positive and key phrases negative in Power BI. So let's just move back to the slides. All right, so this just talks really an overview about what we've already covered, which talks about transforming your data. And I just want to point out before you run analysis on your data, such as sentiment analysis or keyword phrases, please clean your data. If there's nulls in there, it's not going to work. And make sure you have that unique identifier. You're also going to want to create a custom function. This will help integrate Power BI and the text analytics. Like I said, I just gave you that link to that web page, and that will kind of help you create that custom function. It reviews the text as a parameter. It parses the response, as I mentioned, the JSON. And then I just gave you some additional steps. We went to the new source, you create a blank query, you go to home ribbon events editor, and then you move the old code and you put it with a new one. So here's just a little example of what the sentiment analysis code looks like. And as I was saying, you need your API and key and your endpoint, and there's the JSON. And that's just another example. And then use the custom functions as we discussed. Okay, and then let's move on to, as I said, we're going to revisit some of those AI principles, transparency for sentiment analysis. Like I said, don't make big decisions off sentiment analysis. It's not always 100% accurate. So if you have some customer reviews and you want to see if, it's going to affect, the employee who handled that customer performance, you don't want 100% rely on that. You have to make sure that, sentiment analysis is being, accurate with it, because you don't want to hold someone's job on the line for something that may not be 100% accurate. And that's really, really important. So consider the scenarios outside the product and service review domain. Like I was saying, if someone kind of gives like a response in the context like, oh, usually the service is bad, but I got a great, employee, you kind of want to take that out of context and really understand what that person's saying. And then, you just want to do filters or removing your content. So I know it's 6:42, so I wanted to stop at 6:45 in case there are any questions. I always like to give about 10 minutes for questions. What I did here, though, was I created a little table here about text analytics and these links here. So if you want to take a screenshot, you can. I went through all this when I was studying it. Text analytics, frequent questions, text analytics API docs, text analytics, pricing, and sentiment analysis and opinion mining. That is something back in the past I was trying to use opinion mining, but I wasn't 100% successful with it, just with the sentiment analysis. But if you did want to look at that, you can. And then I made another table of cognitive services, and that's kind of like pre-trained models here. And you can use any of these. And then I just have some documentation of a table with Power BI and where the links are. And like I said, I just noticed today that there were some changes in Azure Cognitive Services. I think NLP is under, and text analytics just in general is under language. So that was a surprise. I didn't know about that. So now let's just, have a quick review of what we talked about. So what I first did was kind of give you a background about AI, just so you can understand when we dug into Power BI, what this was about. So we just listed the elements of AI. We defined AI insights. We discussed the 3 AI insights in Power Query. We defined the functions. We did a demo of sentiment analysis as well as key phrases. We also just kind of had a review of what we discussed, and now, of course, we're going to have some QA. All right, so that is the end of my presentation. I'm looking forward to hearing to your questions.
Unfortunately, it looks like the Q&A is not enabled. I don't know how I missed that step. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Let me just put this on. And that's fine, and people can feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn or Twitter. It's IT Data Diva on both platforms.
Yes, we definitely encourage you to continue the dialogue. And same thing for the raffle. I will email the participants with how they can enter, since I normally do that through the chat too. I don't know how I missed turning that setting on.
Oh, it's okay, no problem. All right, did you need anything else from me?
I think we're all set and we can let you go from there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, well, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And like I said before, if anyone has any questions, feel free to send me a message. I'll be happy to answer, or at least give you some good resources.
Excellent. Thank you so much. AI and Power BI is one of my favorite topics, so always cool to see how easy it is to get started there.
Yes, and it's a lot of fun, and I hope I gave some good, sample data sets for people to play with.
Some great resources there.
Well, thank you, Brian, and I hope you have I think we're in the same time zone, so I hope you have a great evening, and same to everyone else.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We will sign off from here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.